All right, ladies and gentlemen, nice to see you. Mr. Buka from MrBuka.net. This time we're going to be using the second half of the Think Java Chapter 1 to actually program something. So this should be a little bit more fun. Again, I'm assuming you have the Eclipse and the JDK already installed on your device. And if you don't, please go back to MrBuka.net and follow the install videos that I mentioned in the last video. And if you do, then let's get moving on. So if you don't have that installed, go to MrBuka.net, you click on Java Programming, and you will see how to install through these 3 videos under the How to Install Eclipse in the JDK at Home. I will be using the Think Java text, which is linked right here, and we'll open up to this. You should probably follow along using the book as well as the video. I'm on Chapter 1, page 6 at this point, and we'll go over this program so you can just go ahead and copy and paste this if you'd like to. So we're going to copy this. And then when I open up Eclipse, I'm using the Mars version. It doesn't really matter what version you're using, but if you select a workspace, we should probably create a separate workspace for any kind of major projects that we're doing. It keeps you a little organized and a little less hectic. I'm going to call this Learn Java, and I'm going to use the camel notation. So I've got like a lowercase in every word. There's no space. It's just another hump or a capital letter, if you will. So Learn Java, and that's going to go ahead and open up the new workspace. And while that's going on, again, make sure you're on this page 6, and we'll copy and paste that code there. Now, the first time you create a workspace, you'll see this Welcome tab, and you know it'd do you some good to kind of take a look at this and click on some of these things at some point. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and close that tab, and we're going to create a new project. So File, New, Java Project. And then within that Java project, I'm just going to go ahead and call this Think Java 1. And then I'll just leave everything at its default and then click Finish. And I should now have this project folder here. And now what I'll do is I'll right click on that and I'll go to New Class. And I will create the class called Hello, because that is the name that is inside the Think Java tome. And once that is created, it will generate this code here for you. So we'll have package Think Java 1, public class Hello. If it doesn't have a package name here and your package ends up being called default package, you're good to go. You don't have to add this package statement. However, if your package is called Think Java 1, then yes, you absolutely need that. So if we go ahead and we take a look back at that, we'll see this code here. So let's go ahead and we'll copy this. It'll save us a little bit of typing for right now. And then we'll just highlight this section of the code, and then we'll just paste right over it. All right. So we kind of get this garbled mess here. I'm going to close this because we won't be needing this anytime soon. That'll help me open up some window space, and I'll also kind of move this over a little bit. You might notice my font's a little bit bigger. I did that so that you could see it. So if you're smaller, again, don't worry about it. I'm going to use a shortcut key, Control-Shift-F. All right, so Control-Shift-F, and that will automatically format my code. With newer programmers, I like to do a couple things. I like to put a space after every brace if I can. That way it's a little bit more viewable, easier to view. And if you think about this, we've got a couple things here. We have the class header, and I know that because it's got these purple or keywords in Java. So these are words that we can't use. We'll get into what that means a little bit later. But public class, all right? So having the keyword class here tells me that this is the class header. And then I have what's called the main method. So I see the main method right here. All Java applications require a main method. Again, we don't need to know too much about that. But if we look, we'll see these braces. Now, these are left-facing braces. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this comment, and you might want to do it too. It doesn't affect the way your code runs, but it does help you sort of understand the program a little bit better. So you'll see that these braces, if you watch, kind of first in, last out. So we've got our opened class brace, which is our left facing brace, and then our closing brace for this is actually this very last one down here, right there. All right, and then the opening brace for the main method here, but this one right here closes the main method. All right, so kind of important. So if we think about learning Java as learning how to write in a different language, in English, we'll write paragraphs, and that's kind of what methods are in a way. It's like they're the paragraphs. There's these certain sections of thoughts, if you will. And then every one of our sentences ends in a semicolon, as we can see here. Now, these comments here, I'm going to get rid of them because really they're kind of pointless. The authors were just trying to show you how to create comments, and we already kind of did that. All right, so these comments here, our compiler doesn't look at them. It ignores them because they say, hey, you know what, this is for the human to read. It's not for the computer program at all. So, and that's exactly it. We'll eventually put notes in our program that'll help us understand them or help others who follow us understand them, and that's what we've kind of done here already. Now, if this is a paragraph to us, then what's in between are the sentences that make up that paragraph, right? So every sentence ends in a period in English, but for us, a semicolon in Java. And not only are these statements, but they're print statements. If we look at it, we have the println method that's ran from the system class in the .out package. Don't worry too much about that, but it creates some output for us, right? So if we look here, if we go ahead and we run this program, we will get that. We click OK, and then bam, in our console somewhere, you get hello world, how are you? Which are what are string literals that are exactly inside of these quotations here, right? So anytime you get a program, especially straight out of a book, it doesn't hurt to at least practice or wonder a little bit. So I'm going to copy that line of code, and I will put in something a little optimistic. I hope, wow, you are great, right? And then I'll go ahead and I'll run this code again, because I just want to say, hey, can I put anything I want in there, or was that like the only way the program would run? And lo and behold, if you look down here, it now prints out that. All right, so that's your println. They're each a statement, and you can see they create output, and output is what the computer gives to you, the user, as you view the code. So following along on the presentation, we saw the main method, right? So not the greatest example when we talk about methods, but we'll get into them as we go. But nonetheless, it is a method. Generally, a method, as they say here, is a sequence of statements. So if I were trying to teach you how to jump, I could say jump, and chances are you know how to do that, right? But there's actually a sequence of actions that has to occur for somebody to jump. Typically, they bend their knees a little bit, they maintain their balance, and then they thrust upwards, right? So I say jump, you're doing all those things. I can't just say that to a computer. I actually have to, or to any kind of machine, I actually have to break down what are the exact steps for that. So in this instance, that's what I do. I break down exactly everything that object or that person needs to do in order to actually jump. So that is that. If we look at the main method, right, I've just created a method that does these things right here, line by line, and it does nothing more and it does nothing less. Right? So a line that begins with the 2 slashes is a comment. It's also known as a single line comment. You'll notice that I've put them after the brace to denote, hey, what does that brace do? And I've also we also see it above all these print statements. And so sometimes we use it like this, where we generate some simple output, right? So that lets us know that these next lines are for generating simple output. All right, so it doesn't really execute anything, it just lets us know. So debugging is something that's also mentioned in the program. So sometimes we make mistakes, right? And we have to figure it out. Some of the more difficult ones are our logic errors, right? Where the program doesn't have any red lines or anything like that, but it's just not working the way we want it to. And we're going to run into some of those as we get through these videos, and we're going to learn how to try to problem solve and figure out where those problems are. And then, some of yours are just simple errors that you'll see right away. So I might say something like this, and maybe you want to program along with me. Right? So, and then I end my sentence in the semicolon, and I got an error, right? So this error, and here's the nice thing about using Eclipse, it's highlighted right here. So it says system cannot be resolved. Now, if you've got a really good eye and you're really tearing apart the lines above that, you're probably going to be able to figure out where the issue is. But here's some ways to use your program to help you out. First of all, system is highlighted, so chances are the error is somewhere right within that. So I'm going to look very closely at things above and try to figure out what the issue is. Now, made this one pretty easy. If I see this, well, there's a capital S here and there's a lowercase s here. One of the things we need to know about Java is it is case sensitive. So when I look at this and system cannot be resolved, I'm going to remember what it means is it doesn't really understand what I'm talking about when I say system. And that's because there is no such thing as a lowercase system, but there is an uppercase system. And now if I Control S save that, I now have no errors anymore. So I can go ahead and I can run that. So that's one way to debug. You have some features within your IDEs or your Eclipse that help you figure things out, and we'll learn some other ways as we go. Now, in the chapter on page 8, we're going to see some of our escape sequences. Now, these aren't all the escape sequences, but they are some. We're going to use each one of these real quick. We're going to get the new line, the tab, the double quote, and the backslash, and see what each one of these do. So the first one we're going to look at is the double quote. If we go back to our Eclipse, type in this line here, system.out.println, in literal quotes, Tammy told me to tell you she said hi. Now, if I run this program real quick, you're going to see that it says Tammy told me to tell you she said hi. Now, if you're an English major, you know that that should be in quotes, right? So if I go, oh, easy enough, I'll go ahead and I'll just add quotes to this, right? And then I'll run the program. Well, first of all, I won't be able to run the program, but let's go ahead and try and see what happens. Errors, yeah, do you want to lead? All right, so I've got some long line of errors. I see lots of red. A new programmer doesn't know what any of this is about, right? So we don't need to worry about it. But a nice thing is that if you weren't aware of this big red line here, it tells you what line it's on, and you'll see that it's this line, right? So we can't just put in quotes, as easy as that might seem. We have to take a look back at our escape sequences. Now, if I do want to use a quote, I have to use the slash before it. So if I go like this, slash, save that with my Control S, and then run it, we'll see now it runs perfectly, and it prints exactly the way we'd hope. So that's how you use the escape sequence slash quote. All right, to give you a little bit more exercise, let's say we wanted a backslash character, right? We'll go ahead and we'll go back to our code, and I've got a statement here for you already. System.out.println, a backslash character looks like this, and then I've got the backslash character, right? And again, we can see we have an error. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to put another slash in front of that, and then our error goes away. And you might think, well, it's going to print these two, but really when we run it, we'll see that it only prints one of these. So again, the escape sequence allows us to print those special characters or to perform certain actions. If we look at a new line or tab here, I'm going to go ahead and say, let me go /n right here, just to kind of give you an idea of what it might look like. So we've got a \n, and then how does that change what our output was last time? If I go ahead and I run it, right, I see that my output is now on a different line, right? So that's a little bit not what I was hoping for, but see, well, not what I was hoping for as a programmer. So if I didn't want that there, right, I would just get rid of that, right? Maybe I just wanted to tab it over. So again, I'm going to put the \t and see if that's a little something different than as to what I wanted. Oh, there you go. So let's say I wanted that tab space there instead. All right. So these escape sequences allow us to do different things. There's lots of programmer reasons why we'd want to format text in a certain way or have certain characters show. So hopefully that helps you figure those out right there. Again, you should probably read through here a little bit because they have some examples for you. All right. So hopefully that helps you get through your first chapter. We'll worry about some advanced debugging Make yourself familiar with the vocabulary. That's always going to help you. And then, of course, one of the best things you can do is run through the exercises at the end of each chapter. Again, they challenge you to sort of put to use what you should have learned in the book. All right, best of luck to you, and we'll see you for the next chapter, and we're going to start programming a lot more in all of them.